Tonight, we're gonna make pappardelle with porcini mushroom. It's a hearty autumn dish. These mushrooms have been picked yesterday and the smell coming out of this is fantastic. And the recipe is pretty easy. Let me show you how. Today we're gonna do one of the most Italian things ever. We're gonna make pappardelle ai funghi porcini with porcini mushrooms. This one I've been picked just yesterday from an old man that I know pretty well, and he gifted it to us for this recipe. We are now in mushroom season. We are in October. November is when porcini mushrooms start to grow, and it's the right time to go and pick them, or if you don't know where to go, it's the right time to go and buy them. These are full of flavor, they're very meaty, and they're fantastic when eaten fresh. Most of the time we have to buy the dried ones because it's hard to find them fresh or you're not in the right season. But if you're in October, November, this is the dish for you. So for the ingredients, of course, we have the porcini mushrooms, which we're gonna cook together with garlic, chili, and extra virgin olive oil, salt and pepper, of course. And then we're gonna make our own fresh pappardelle, which we're gonna use eggs and 00 flour. Before we start cleaning the mushroom, let me tell you a couple of tips that are fundamental when buying porcini to make sure you're spending your money on a porcini which is really worth it. So first of all, the color. So this one, you can see is a bit darker, this one is lighter one. When it's darker, that means it's been picked near an oak tree and the flavor is a little bit more intense. The lighter one has been picked around a chestnut tree. That means the flavor is a lot more delicate. Now, how do we pick the right one? So first of all, the biggest risk you have when buying porcini is that when you cut it in half, they're full of little bugs. We don't like bugs, so we don't want to eat them. So the first thing you have to do is you make sure that when you press them, they are tough. This needs to be nice and hard, which means that it's full of mushroom and not full of holes with little bugs inside. Of course, in the shop, they're not going to let you fondle the mushroom, but you can go and do a cheeky push here and there to make sure you're getting the right thing. So next up, we need to clean them. Of course, these have been in the woods. They need cleaning. These ones are actually fairly cleaned. So you see at the bottom doesn't really have much dirt. So we take a smooth knife and you can just kind of scratch them like this to remove any of the excess dirt. If you see like here, this looks a little bit more aged, we take it out. But ultimately, all of these look pretty clean to me. So we just go across them, so this thing is a little bit darker, so we can just remove that. This we can take out. If you feel the need that needs water to get them properly clean, then you can do it under cold water and you do a quick rinse, because if you put them soaking, they'll absorb all the water and that's going to be released when cooking and it's just going to dilute the flavor. So I'm going to show you how to rinse one in the water in just a second. This one is a little bit more dirty, so we'll do it with this one. In the middle ground, in a situation like this where you have a little bit of dirt that doesn't come off, a little bit of wet kitchen paper, and we just rub the dirt off. So the mushroom, when you cut it in half, and it's a good mushroom, it needs to look like this. Nice and white. No little bugs, nice and meaty, and this is going to be perfect. So let me show you how to clean it in the water. So to clean in the water, it's easier to break it up in two. So we can just twist the top, well, or the bottom, and it comes apart. We'll try if it goes away, this one with the wet towel. Not so much, so we'll rinse it real quick. Running water, and we just rub it. So we do this quite quickly. So this is done. Same thing here. This is done. Then you need to dry them real quick because moisture is our enemy. So this is dry and we do the same thing with the stem. So we're going to start making the pappardelle, which needs a little bit more time than making the sugo. So we're cooking for 6 people, so we're going to use 4 eggs and 380 grams of flour. We make big well in the middle. And we break our eggs inside. Wow, this is broken really badly. 1, 2, 3, and 4. Start off with a fork, just a little bit of a cleaner way to get things started. And in doing that, you start bringing together some of the flour. You'll have plenty of time to get your hands dirty, trust me. Just use your hands and get the flour to mix in. And once it's beginning to look a little bit like this, it's more dense, this is the time we get dirty. And like I've told you before, at this point it feels like you've got way too much flour. But you keep working it and it'll get absorbed. Ideally, if you have a bench scraper, use that. It's very handy. But I'm at my in-laws today and they don't have it, so we'll do without. And as you work it, takes about 7-8 minutes, it begins to start being nice and smooth, like that. If you feel like you need a little bit more moisture, then just wet your hand, just one, and continue working it. That's gonna be enough to make it the way you want it. Okay, so I'm quite happy with this one. A little bit of cling film. Nice and tight, and this goes in the fridge for about half an hour. To prepare the mushrooms, easier thing to do is, again, take the stem off. You can cut this in half, depending how big it is, and we're gonna make it into cubes. If you see that some of the mushroom is a little bit ruined, it's okay, you would just clean this off. The stem is looking great, nice and white. And you got into cubes. And the smell of the porcini is unmistakable. They give so much flavor to any dish you're gonna use them with. And this week, I'm up in Scotland, so these are Scottish porcini. The Scots don't pick them for some crazy reason. So you go outside into the woods outside of Glasgow, you can come back home with 100 kilos worth of porcini. It's incredible. First, we need to infuse the oil. We're gonna infuse it with garlic and parsley. Just keep it simple because the flavor of the porcini is just so wonderful, you don't wanna masquerade it with anything else. So peel the garlic, we give it a squash, we throw it in. We're gonna remove it afterwards. As I told you many times, the stem of the parsley is full of flavor and it's amazing to infuse the oil. So stems go in as well. Extra virgin olive oil, only the holistic of course. About this much olive oil, and we're gonna move to the stoves. We're gonna leave the garlic here until it's slightly golden. At that point, we'll have infused the oil and it's time to remove it. Depending on your taste, you can use chili. I think that a little bit of chili always enhances flavors generally. So even with porcini, I just like to put a little bit of a hint. But chili do burn at lower temperature in respect to garlic. So you don't add it straight away when you start infusing your oil, you're gonna add it a little bit later, but let's get ourselves ready with a little bit of chili. Let's just give it a quick taste to make sure it's not too hot. Whoa, okay, it's a hot chili, we're gonna put a lot less than this. Good thing I tasted it. Woo! Okay, and now, I need to remember that this hand has touched the chili, so be careful. Now I can hear crackling, so if we move here, this is beginning to infuse. Let's just lower the gas a little bit. And we're just gonna leave it like this. So you're gonna infuse a little bit quicker. All the garlic is submerged. Once the garlic has browned, or golden I should say, we just take it out. We increase the fire and the mushrooms go in. Try not to splash like I'm doing. This is a video of what not to do. And we'll just put a little bit of the chili. You want a lively fire. We're gonna add some salt straight away. The salt is gonna drag out some of the moisture from the mushroom. And when it comes to porcini, you need to cook them for about 10 minutes. they need to get rid of some of the internal moisture, which doesn't really taste great. And the salt is going to help to achieve that. Your choice of pan is also very important because the mushroom releases a lot of liquid. If you have a pot, you're going to accumulate a lot of water at the bottom, so you're going to boil the mushroom, which you don't want to do. What you want to do is having a shallow pan, ideally something bigger than this one, but this is the biggest that we have here in the house, and make sure that they get a little bit crunchy on the outside. It's actually quite good even if they stick to the pan, because that kind of crunchiness, I'll show you how we're going to take it out. It's going to add a lot of flavor. So once you have it, move them about. Put a lid on. Oh, look at that. Look how much liquid this is releasing. This has only been 3 minutes. Okay, make sure we turn them. Lid back on. On the side, make sure you start boiling your water with salt. We're going to use for the pasta a little bit later on, but I'll show you why we need it now. It's been 5 minutes, the lid comes off. We're going to finish the rest of the cook without the lid on. After about 7 or 8 minutes, you see that the porcini started to caramelize where it's been touching the pan. And now we're just going to add a little bit of that water we did before. Lid back on, and this is going to create a lovely creaminess from the mushrooms that we're going to be using for our sauce. Once you reach 12 minutes with the mushrooms, you switch off the fire, keep the lid on, and just let them be. This is going to give you a little bit of time to make our pappardelle. And then we're going to finish the sauce of the mushrooms as we're cooking the pappardelle. So we're just going to cut one piece, cover the rest, otherwise it gets dry. And we're going to be using one of these manual pasta maker, which are great. So quick flatten of this, a little bit of flour on both sides. Wide the setting, of course. And you start working this. Same process as when we use the mechanical one. The first one will fold it back into itself and it goes back in. And you keep making your way from larger to smaller and smaller and smaller, all the way to the smallest. Every so often, just to make sure it doesn't stick, just a little bit of flour, both sides. And you carry on. When I was younger, my grandma on the weekend used to wake up early and start making pasta for everybody, and my job was to turn this lever like this, which now I see why it made sense, because it's feels like it's a two-man job. I find that before you put it into the smallest setting, it's always a good idea to put some flour so it goes in nice and smooth. Here you are, nice and thin and smooth. When you have your sheet, you take it, you fold it in half again, just a sprinkle of flour, you don't want anything to stick, half. All right, clean up the edges. So like motion, and we make our pappardelle. You can make them as thin or as thick as you like. I find that porcini, bold flavors from the mushroom. We want to have a bold flavor from a pappardelle. We pull them over and they open up nicely. Again, best way of storing them, we make into a little knot like that on a countertop with some flour, and that's another portion. So without boring you for half an hour, I'm going to carry on until it's all done, and then I'm going to show you what we're going to do with them. Our water is in a rolling boil, and we get to put our pappardelle in. 5 nests. We're quite hungry tonight. These take about 4 minutes to cook. Give them a nice mix. This will make sure that if they got stuck together while they were drying, they're gonna detach now while they're cooking. Fire back on here. A little bit of pepper. And the heat will get all the aromas of the pepper out. We put a little ladle of pasta water. Four minutes, and then we get to drain it. It's totally fine. Take some of the pasta water alongside with you. We're gonna use that to create some extra creaminess. My wok here is not as large as I would like, but it's fine. We're just gonna figure out anyway. This will be a good amount for the wok, but we have double the amount of pappardelle. That's okay. Let's make it nice and cozy. And here we start mixing it. We add our fresh parsley, and the parsley goes now because if you cook the parsley, it becomes bitter, and we don't want that. So we make the pasta jump a little bit, make sure that the mushrooms mix with the pappardelle. A little more fresh parsley. And now the gas goes off. Some Parmigiano Reggiano. A touch more pasta water, and this will make it super, 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 super creamy. You can hear the sound, can you? Look at that, ladies and gentlemen. I think this is looking absolutely stunning. So let's go plate it up. Oh, look at the porcini. Ooh. Of course, the more porcini you have, the better it is. We did as much as we could with what we had. And we can top it up with some more Parmigiano. Look at that. Isn't this a thing of beauty? It goes without saying this is my favorite part. Oh my God. If you do find fresh porcini mushrooms from your market, buy it, do this recipe, and trust me, you won't be disappointed. Buon appetito!